Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
Shut.
This next segment will be our last announcement.
That's not a
Please
segment.
take a look.
Metroid.
Metroid Prime.
Mario Odyssey 2. What?
Wait,
Wait.
what's this?
That's not Xenoblade.
This is not Metroid.
That's not Xenoblade. Not the Outstar.
Monolith new
Fighting
IP.
in
What?
order to live,
No, it is Xenoblade!
Josh.
Wait,
Is it?
wait.
Yeah.
living to fight.
Wait.
Yeah, shut up, unmute.
Holy shit.
Is it? Show me blade.
That's
Yeah,
the
those
way
are
of our
blades.
world.
There's a blade! There's a
This
blade!
is Xenoblade.
That's
This is
Xenoblade!
Xenoblade.
As you can tell from this reaction, I am quite a big fan of the Xenoblade series. My first encounter with Xenoblade was through playing Smash 4 and Shulk's inclusion in Nintendo's All-Star Brawler. My actual introduction into the franchise proper would come only a few years later, with Xenoblade 2 in late 2017. If you haven't watched my Xenoblade 2 video yet, seriously you should watch it, it's quite good. But TLDR, I fucking love Xenoblade 2, to its fantastic cast of characters, satisfying combat, beautiful world, and its incredible story. It led me to play the other games of the Blade series, and games in the other echelons of the Xeno series. While they didn't capture the same magic as Xenoblade 2 did, they're all great in their own right. Fast forward a few years to August 2021, when rumors about a Xenoblade 3 started to emerge, and its story scenario excited me. A scenario where it takes place after the events of Xenoblade 1 and 2 had my brain in a frenzy on what could happen within this new world after the experiment. How far in the future will this take place? Who will be alive in this game? Will it be a new cast, or a mashup of 1 and 2s? All my questions were answered in a February Nintendo Direct in 2022, which revealed the game in the war-torn Aionios, and its initial release date of September 2022. And in that moment, that excitement turned into pure adrenaline, as I kept up to date with every new piece of info Monopon would tweet out surrounding the game. Along with a surprising reveal on April 19th that the game's release date has been moved up from September 2022 to July 29th, which would kick me into overdrive. My most anticipated game of the year is coming 2 months earlier than expected, and during my summer break no less. A few months and a direct later, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was released on July 29th, 2022, and the rest is history. I stayed up for the midnight release of Xenoblade 3, barely getting any sleep for the next few days, as I beat the game 3 days after its release with a time of 76 hours. Like entries before, I fell in love with Xenoblade 3, with its fantastic cast of characters, gripping story, and addicting combat. Still, it also left me with a feeling of a missing element that Xenoblade 1 and 2 didn't lack. But Monolith was making a Xenoblade game in a different environment compared to previous games. Xenoblade 3 was an entry into a well-known franchise, unlike Xenoblade 1. It only had to improve upon an engine instead of creating a new one, along with staff experienced in HD development, unlike Xenoblade X. It was a game with ample time and staff to create it, unlike Xenoblade 2. But even these aspects didn't stop Monolith's ambition for this game. How do you create a sequel for not only one game, but for 2 at the same time? Did they succeed, or was the game another victim of overambition? Well, we'll see the answer for ourselves, so strap in. This is... This video will contain spoilers for the 3 mainline Xenoblade games, Xenogears, and the Xenosaga trilogy. If you haven't played any of these games, or have only played one of them, stop watching this video and go play these games. I wouldn't want to spoil these incredible games for anyone, as they have some of my favorite gaming moments. I'll still be here once you're done, and when you come back, so you can watch this and enjoy this video to its fullest glory. To those who are still here, I'll assume that you've played all the games mentioned, or you're just too lazy to play them and don't care about spoilers. Also, one last thing before we move on. Did you know that only 8% of you guys are subscribed? It would really help me out if you hit the subscribe button along with the bell. It would help me make a lot more content like this and help me towards my goal of 10k subs toward the end of 2023. Alright, enough spoiler warnings and shilling. Let's dive right in.
It's good to keep a record.
Aionios, a land with a history left untold.
with a pre-release period like no other. Would Aionios satiate their hunger, or would they walk away with frustration and disappointment?
Xenoblade Chronicles 3 started development around August 2018, with Monolith nearing the completion of Xenoblade 2's story expansion, Torna, the Golden Country. The first ideas for Xenoblade 3 started near the end of Xenoblade 1's development and during the middle of Xenoblade 2's development, with the visual of the broken Mikado sword and the wounded Orion Titan making up the story scenario for the game. After Torna's completion, the Xenoblade team split off into two groups. One group went to go and work on a remaster of the original Xenoblade game on the Wii titled Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, released in May 2020. And the other group would start work on a new game that Takahashi pitched to Nintendo in May 2018 that would eventually become Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Masasugu Saito reprises his role as Xenoblade 3's main character designer from Xenoblade 2, with the team asking Saito to give the characters a mature and grounded look compared to Xenoblade 2's fantasy and youthful look to fit the tone of Xenoblade 3's story. The new unique element to the game, Ouroboros, was done by Koichi Mugitani, more known by his pen name, Choco, a character designer for the Xenosaga series who did some designs for rare blades in Xenoblade 2 as a guest artist. The first seeds of speculation around Xenoblade 3 started around May 2020, when Takahashi had an interview with Famitsu regarding Xenoblade DE and its brand new epilogue, Future Connected. Takahashi stated that Future Connected would show a glimpse of the future of the Xenoblade series, and that they didn't want to put too many resources into developing it as it will affect the development of their new project. Fast forward to February 2021, when Yasunori Mitsuda says he started work on a brand new project on his blog. Later in May, the Facebook page of Bratislava Symphony Orchestra, the same orchestra that helped record tracks for Xenoblade 2, posted that they finished a recording session for a video game with Mitsuda thanking them for the session. Of course, this isn't valid proof that a Xenoblade 3 existed, as Mitsuda is a well-known composer who works on various projects and doesn't only work on Xenoblade. That changed on June 14th, 2021, when the YouTuber, Din's Meteorite, uploaded a 2.5-minute chat with Jenna Coleman. She talks about her experiences for her role as Melia in Xenoblade 1 and Future Connected, along with hinting at the existence of a third mainline entry on the horizon. This put the community in a frenzy, as this could link to Mitsu's recordings for an unknown game and a possible new Xenoblade could be coming within a few months. But on August 9th, 2021, credible industry insider Imran Khan made it known. Xenoblade 3 was real, and it was nearing completion. Khan would drop the first details on the game, like its far-future scenario of the worlds of Xenoblade 1 and 2, and the game pushing the Switch's limits with it having the most playable character models in a Xenoblade game. Some fans believed the rumor, some thought it was fake, and a small section of fans were upset that it wasn't an export or sequel. This made some fans anticipate the upcoming September Direct, hoping for an announcement of the next entry of Monolith's JRPG franchise. But no Xenoblade was found, with Bayonetta 3 being left as the one last name. Afterward, there was another rumor of Xenoblade 3 getting announced at that year's Game Awards. But of course, there was no Xenoblade to be found. Like, come on, who would believe in such a stupid rumor like that? But on February 9th, 2022, as Nintendo's one last thing of the Direct, they revealed Xenoblade Chronicles 3 to the world. This led to countless fan theories about the plot, with Monopon, the mascot of the Xenoblade Twitter account, giving out info every day in the coming days after the announcement. Shortly after the announcement of Xenoblade 3, Takahashi had a blog post talking about the game's concepts, character designers, and composers, along with the use of flutes within the game's soundtrack. Takahashi would state in this blog that Xenoblade 3 is a standalone adventure. Where have I heard that before? You can't fool me again, Takahashi. But this new scenario would lead to over expectations of the game, with some fans expecting multiple major cameos from characters of previous games to be present besides Nia and Melia. In a later blog post, Takahashi also stated that Xenoblade 3 would mark the end of the Cloud saga that began with the first game back in 2010, fueling expectations even more. On April 19th, 2022, Nintendo dropped another trailer for Xenoblade 3, giving us the first look at the gameplay and aspects of the story, along with the most important part of the trailer. The game is now launching on July 29th instead of September 2022. This date change was probably done to give Splatoon 3 more time to polish, but this meant one thing for Xenoblade fans. Peak Fiction is coming to us early. 2 months later, we would get a dedicated direct for Xenoblade 3, detailing the game's new systems and announcing the expansion pass, and a travesty regarding the game's special edition. Nintendo didn't properly prepare its servers for the influx of Xenoblade fans. Unlike previous special editions of Xenoblade games, Xenoblade 3 Special Edition was a My Nintendo Store exclusive. This would cause the store to crash multiple times and show the face of the secret super boss, server crashing Wario. This led to many Xenoblade fans venting their frustration on Twitter about Nintendo's awful service. This would happen twice in the same month before you can never order a special edition ever again. Well, on the North American side, at least. The European special edition got delayed till October, and still got server problems. But, a little over a month later, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was released on July 29th, 2022, to unanimous positive acclaim from critics and fans alike.
It's good to keep a record.
A world filled with beautiful sights to behold, pushing the limits of the hardware it's chained to. Aionios is truly the culmination of those before it.
The presentation of Xenoblade 3 is absolutely amazing, as it genuinely feels like the culmination of Monolith's experience developing games on the Switch and the series as a whole. Xenoblade 3 runs at 1080p, while in dock mode, and 720p in handheld mode, with some dips. This provides a sharper image of Xenoblade 3's incredible world, and is a stark improvement from Xenoblade 2 and Xenoblade DE, which both run at a dynamic 720p resolution. Performance has also been improved, as the frame rate usually sits around a steady 30 FPS, with dips when many effects appear on screen while in combat. Like its predecessors, Xenoblade 3 has some incredible attention to detail throughout the game, whether that be the differences in swords within the Swordfire class if Noah uses it, with the hilt of Lucky 7 being visible compared to the rest of the party, the various references to previous games later throughout the game, your clothes getting dirtier as you explore and fight enemies, or the alternate cutscenes or events depending on who's in your party. But speaking of cutscenes, the cutscene direction in Xenoblade 3 is the series at its peak. Xenoblade games have always had incredible cutscenes for the story, with fantastic direction of shots and angles accompanied by the use of mocap that bring these cutscenes to life. But Xenoblade 3 is on a whole nother level with some of the best cinematography I've seen in any video game, let alone any piece of media. One of my favorite improvements to cutscenes was the seamless transition from cutscene to gameplay. Monolith stated that achieving this technique was very difficult for the team to pull off, as they wanted better transitions from previous titles, and they rocked it. These transitions give a lot of added immersion and can make previous titles harder to go back to. Some other cool details are the stylish cut-ins in battle, the cute character interactions at rest areas, and some unique hero ones. Yes, I did put this here so I can use this Mia clip. The shift in Xenoblade's art style from the styles of Xenoblade 1 and X to the more anime-esque art style of Xenoblade 2, headed by Masatsugu Saito, bore its fruit, as Xenoblade 2 quickly became the best-selling game in the franchise, selling 1 million copies in its launch month, and selling over 2 million copies in its lifetime. The success of Xenoblade 2 led to Saito's return as main character designer for Xenoblade 3. As mentioned before, Monolith requested Saito to design the characters with a mature look and modest outfits, a departure from Xenoblade 2's more youthful and fantasy origins for its designs. This was done so the designs wouldn't clash with the tone of the story, a complaint echoed by some who played Xenoblade 2. The team at Monolith worked hard to bring Saito's designs to life, making the models as close to his artwork as possible without them looking all plasticky. Monolith excelled at this, with Xenoblade 3 having the most expressive characters in the series, with every character being so emotive within their animations, like Mio's ears in various cutscenes. But speaking of animations, the animations of the main cast are absolutely amazing, with their idle animations giving them so much personality. I also love the person who did the animations for Mio's hair, for both short and long. It's always so satisfying to look at and watch it bounce. The main cast's outfits are more modern and similar to those in our world, like Uni's and Mio's hoodies or Lance's coat. Not only does it fit these characters perfectly, but also shows the fashion of the third power within Aionios, the city. It's a perfect blend of the more grounded and realistic look of Xenoblade 1 and the anime style of Xenoblade 2. Xenoblade 3 continues to show Monolith's ingenuity in making the most out of underpowered hardware. The fact that Xenoblade 3 looks this good with this high fidelity on what is essentially the power of a tablet is still crazy to me. Xenoblade 3 is an outstanding achievement and will continue to age beautifully for years to come.
It's good to keep a record.
Aionios, an incredible world with secrets left to be found. A connected world with incredible vistas to gaze upon. But despite that, Aionios lacks its own identity from worlds past.
Like its predecessors before it, Aionios is a massive world with secrets to find. Aionios is made up of the remains of the Bionis and Mechanis from Xenoblade 1 and Ulrus from Xenoblade 2, and is separated into 5 major regions. These regions are said to be 4 times the size of the Titans in Xenoblade 2, containing areas with similar sizes of its predecessors. I love how interconnected the world is. You can walk from Colony 9 all the way to the Cloud Keep and back in just 30 minutes. We aren't back to the truly seamless world of Mira, as we still have some loading screens when entering another region, but this is a step in the right direction. Aionios' first region, the A-tier region, comprises the Bionis Leg and Gormont, providing the traditional Xenoblade Grassy Plains area with a disgraced level 80 monkey they're holding Robart hostage, with multiple callbacks in various areas throughout the region. The Fornus region is comprised of Iga's Wilderness, Tornus Dagnau Desert, Rebby Flats, Rebel Tabalan, and my favorite area, Elais Highway, which has such a beautiful atmosphere exploring the remnants of the Fallen Arm with mystical trees, and reaching a distant fingertip after so many years brings a tear to my eye. The Pentelis region consists of the Orion Tunnels, and for one of the areas in the box art is relatively small, with some amazing references throughout with the ruins of Fonza Minor. Great Cot Falls, a small area that houses Colony Lambda and has some of the most peaceful music in. Mactha Wildwood is an incredible area that is the fusion of the land of Mortha and Magna Forest, with various zip lines to use and has one of the coolest references in the game. The Kevis Castle region consists of the Syra Hovering Reefs, which takes the worst aspects of ARC, actually navigating it, and made it even more tedious, and Kevis Castle, which is just a militarized Alchemov, with some nice references within, like the Bionis and Mechanis mural, and Melia's sleeping quarters. The Cadencia region is the biggest region in the game, which consists of Great Sword's base, which was an incredible sight to see for the first time, Sword March, the Broken Mechanis sword, and the biggest highlight of the region, Erythia Sea. Erythia Sea is a fusion of Arif Sea and Etheria, and is amazing. The game gives you a boat called the Bravery to explore this massive area. It has some of the best areas and callbacks, like the Coral Reef area that disables interlinking, the Bionis Head in the distance, and the ruins of Spirit Crucible Elpis that had my jaw dropped. The next region is Agnes Castle, which is just Agnes Castle, a small area used for story content and some quests. The last major area is the upper part of the A-tier region, which consists of and the Cloud Keep, which houses our queen. Okay, fine, I'll talk about Capricorn Peak. Xenoblade snow areas had a good track record before 3, with Tantal and Valak Mountain being fan favorites, so it's so disappointing that Capricorn Peak is the way it is. It feels like an area only needed for Colony Omega, Colony Zero, and the Cloud Keep. It could have been so much more, especially looking at the concept art. Alright, mini tangent about Capricorn Peak is over. Aionios is quite huge, but even the most adventurous must take a break occasionally. There are various rest areas that you can skip travel throughout the world. The rest areas are a perfect evolution of the camps from Torna. You can do various activities at the rest areas, like gem crafting, cooking, and leveling up, like the ends from Xenoblade 2. You can find other things throughout the world, like Piranha's Hulks, fabricators that can be powered up by inserting ether cylinders that can be acquired by collecting ether at ether deposits. Once a Piranha's Hulk is powered up, it turns into a rest area, and you can use the gold to fabricate items from the fabricator. The iconic secret areas also bring some beautiful vistas and some awesome screenshot opportunities, along with the brand new Trick Cave Caverns, providing some simple trick puzzles, personal rewards, or even a Super Bowl. Sometimes one of the party members will spot a notable item or location, walk to it, stand beside it, and give a voice line once you get close. But speaking of voice lines, while on your travels, the main party will have some voice dialogue about the world around them, whether that dialogue is a landmark or insight into recent story events. The travel dialogue gives exploration an amazing sense of detail and another reason to go out and explore and see what dialogue you get. Heroes also get their own travel dialogue on certain landmarks and items, so there's always a reason to revisit areas. The first game had a crazy taxi-styled pointer guiding you throughout the game, also making you keeping your eyes on the arrow at all times. Xenoblade X had the follow ball, which shows you a path to your destination, but it disappeared after like 5 seconds. Xenoblade 2 had a compass which was good for the most part until you faced verticality. More Dane. Definitive Edition improved the compass by having a dotted line on the map, but it always kept you glued to the minimap. Xenoblade 3 now has an improved version of the follow ball from X, with the trail now staying permanently until you toggle it off. This is perfect for exploration throughout the world, as you always know where you're going for quests. There are the various colonies on both Kevis and Agnes, with their own cultures and interactions with the party, and other colonies, making them feel alive. While you're exploring, you'll be notified that an airdrop from either nation has dropped nearby, and you can fend off the nearby soldiers and claim the prize within. You can also find dead bodies, or husks as they call them in game, and you can send them off via the off-scene tune for colony. You can find Kevesi and Agnian soldiers fighting in the wild, and you can take a side for rewards, with the rewards usually being some colony affinity or silver Napon coins. This mechanic doesn't only apply to Kevesi and Agnian soldiers, but also to enemies in the wild, giving Aionios an immersive feeling unrivaled compared to Ulrus and the Bionis and the Mechanis. The Collectopedia returns via the Collectopedia cards, giving value to collectibles outside of quests, as these cards can be completed for items or affinity. But even with all these praises, this world isn't perfect. Due to being a fusion of Bionis and Mechanis and Ulrus, most areas are things you've seen before, but presented in a new way. There wasn't an area that blew me away like Air of Sea, Fallen Arm, or Letheria. The area that blew me away was the Lace Highway, and that was mostly putting a spin on an old classic. Even one of the most impressive areas, the Lost Colony, really, at the end of the day, it's just a riot all over again with the Symphonia trees. Aionios tends to rely on, holy shit, that's from that one area from that one Xenoblade game I like, rather than, holy shit, this area looks fucking amazing. That wow factor can only work for so long, even with all the callbacks. It won't be too long until it starts feeling more of the same. While Aionios is an interconnected beauty, I feel like it falls in the shadow of its older brother.
It's good to keep a record.
People gain strength from numbers. You could acquire these numbers by helping those around you or by finding them in the wild. But when the going gets tough, you'll probably need to recite that one line from Bonnie Tyler's hit song.
Xenoblade has always excelled at having side offerings that accompany the main quest, and Xenoblade 3 is no different, with having some of the best side content in the series. Starting with the standard side quests, these side quests either have you talking to a specific character, defeating some enemies, or bringing items to a character. The travel dialogue from exploring the world also applies to these side quests, so you even get voiced lines, even in standard quests, which typically have none. Some of my favorite quests have to go to the silly adventures of Dorn and Bam Bam, or Puli Puli sabotaging the Doric project and getting a punishment similar to the Manas of earlier games. Completing these quests nets you affinity for that area, which leads into the affinity chart. The affinity chart in Xenoblade 3 is more akin to Xenoblade 1's structure, but unlike Xenoblade 1, you don't have to talk to little Timmy every in-game hour just to get a quest to pop up. You'll know which character will have a quest if they have an information icon above them, and listen to their conversation, discuss the topic at a nearby rest area, and boom, you have now started the quest. You can also gain affinity from NPCs with a star icon. The XE3 affinity chart is a combination of the Xenoblade 1 affinity chart and the benefits of Xenoblade 2's deed system. The affinity of an area goes from 1 to 5 stars, with you gaining benefits when you reach each tier, like decreased enemy detection range or faster running speed. Along with gathering information and discussing them to begin quests, you can find quests around the world by visiting events with a question mark on the map. This leads into the next type of side content, the hero quests. Heroes are Xenoblade 3's equivalent to the rare blades in Xenoblade 2, but unlike Xenoblade 2, heroes are found throughout the world, compared to being trapped within a gacha system. Heroes are split into 3 roles, attacker, defender, and healer, but these will be important in a section later on. To initiate a hero quest, you must go to one of the question mark related events littered around Aionios. Hero quests are different from standard side quests, as they are fully voiced from start to finish and have a substantial reward at the end, being the recruitment of the hero and acquiring their class for the main party. One Ouroboros party member tends to be the focus of the quest, and will be the one who inherits the class at the end of the quest. The other Ouroboros party members will also unlock the class as you use the class on its inheritor, or the hero in your party. Some heroes will also give one of the 4 field skills, and I know some of you guys are getting goosebumps right now, but unlike their use in Xenoblade 2, always swapping blades in and out for a field skill check, field skills are passive, regardless if you have the hero equipped. These skills include climbing vines, riding on zip lines, going on steep slopes, and becoming immune to poisonous hazards. Heroes will also unlock even more standard side quests, which requires the hero in your party. Whether those quests are helping train Colony Gamma's soldiers, helping get food for Colony Tau, or using Collectopedia cards to send to other colonies. Heroes would even interact with each other on certain quests, which is very cool and makes the world feel like a living, breathing world. Some of my favorite heroes are the suicidal maniac Ashira and her lovely interactions with Uni. Even though Miyabi doesn't have that much going on with her, she's a lovely lass nonetheless. Fiona with her incredible quest, along with her just being a good hero, giving out an insane amount of buffs to the party. Try and being a man of the sea. It's a Xenogears reference. The Green Cat and their awesome interactions with the Potato Man Xeon, and the soldiers of Colony 4, and lastly, Melia and Nia, for obvious reasons. But the hero quests don't just stop there. Oh no. On top of the hero quest, each hero has their own ascension quests to upgrade their classes to rank 20, focusing more on the heroes in question. Reaching the conditions for a hero's ascension quest can be as easy as reaching rank 10 of the hero's class, or completing a specific side quest. These ascension quests also apply to the main party, with side stories focusing on a party member needing to upgrade their classes to rank 20. Some of my favorites have to be Miyabi's with her cute cooking competition with Manana, Gondor's quest having one of the most emotional deaths outside of the main story. Rest in peace, Jumbo Turkin. You will be missed. Ashira's quest gives the reason she wants to die due to the aching pain of the scar on her neck, which was given to her by decapitation from her own console in her previous life because of the lack of the homecoming ritual, and she wants to escape that pain and choose the place where she wants to end things. Alexandria and Baldi's interactions in her quest, Fiona finally coming to terms with who Irma was, and finally opening up the Colony Mew on who Irma, or Moebius Eye, really was. Lanz's side story was a highlight of mine, with his conversation with the street performer being one of my favorite interactions in the game, with Lanz taking advantage of his newfound freedoms as Ouroboros, like making a decision even if that decision ended up being pointless, and live life the way you want. All of Senna's side story is absolutely amazing, even if Senna herself is barely in it, but I'll talk more about this side story more when I get to Shania later in the video. Melia's quest is fantastic fan service, especially the Xenoblade 1 party montage at the end, and lastly, Nia's Ascension quest with her telling the tales of Walrus with some incredible fan service in Xenoblade 2, along with confirming the most obvious connection with Mio. Holy fucking shit, he fucked all three of them? But the quests are an absolute blast, and help Xenoblade 3 have a huge amount of content. Even better that the side content is as good, or in some cases, better than what we got in the main story. I hope Monolith continues to evolve the Hero Quest formula in the story DLC coming this year, and in future Xenoblade projects moving forward.
It's good to keep a record.
In this world, fighting is all we have. Sometimes we fight by hitting things to charge attacks, and sometimes we wait 40 seconds to perform one action. But most of all, we fight by literally and figuratively taking the best of both worlds.
Xenoblade games have always had addicting and satisfying combat. From breaking visions and topple locking in Xenoblade 1, obliterating bosses with Overdrive in Xenoblade X, to absolutely shredding your enemies with fusion combos in Xenoblade 2, and of course, Xenoblade 3 is no different. Xenoblade 3's battle system is an evolution of Xenoblade 2's battle system, just how Xenoblade X was an evolution of Xenoblade 1's battle system before it. Just like in Xenoblade 2, you can only auto-attack while standing still, but you now have increased movement along with a dash called Quick Move that you can do by clicking in the right stick on the controller. Xenoblade 3 inherits the character swapping in battle from Torna, and you can now switch between any of the 6 main party members, giving a lot of depth to combat. Auto attacks are now single stage like Xenoblade 1 again, unlike the multi-stage auto attacks of Xenoblade 2. You still have the 4 arts for the face buttons, but the blade special is now replaced with the talent art for every class, and this is a perfect segue into classes. Classes are various playstyles within combat. Xenoblade 2 had classes, but they were very minimal, like increased damage, aggro, or healing. Unlike Xenoblade 3, which has a fleshed out class system. Each class will be under 3 roles: Attacker, Defender, and Healer. Attackers are built for dealing massive damage and performing positional arts, Defenders are made to be in front and take the aggro, and finally, Healers are built for healing and supporting allies. The party gauge from the previous numbered Xenoblade games has been removed, and now is replaced by a chain attack gauge. The revival aspect of the party gauge is now given to the healer role, giving healers a lot of importance compared to previous games. Each role has role actions that fill up the talent art of their respective classes. Attackers fill their talent art by landing critical hits and landing traditional arts. Defenders fill the gauge by taking aggro, along with blocking and dodging damage. And healers fill the gauge by placing down the brand new field arts, along with healing and providing buffs. Along with being one of 3 roles, classes are split into 2 different types, Kevesi and Agnian. Kevesi and Agnian classes differ on how their arts recharge, with Kevesi arts having passive art recharge like Xenoblade 1, and Agnian arts recharging by auto-attacking like in Xenoblade 2, along with gaining more art recharge on cancelling auto-attacks. Changing classes will also change the appearance of your character. Leveling up these classes to the first cap of level 10 will allow you to transmog the appearance of that class to other classes, and more importantly, grant you access to the class's second master art. Master arts are arts that can be used when you change to a different class. You can equip up to 3 at a time, and it allows you to have effects on classes that normally lack it, like a break art or a healing art. You get the first master art upon unlocking the class on the character, and gain a second master art upon upgrading the class to rank 10. Once you level that class to rank 20, you can also use that class's talent art as a master art for other classes. The only limitation master arts have is that you can only use the master arts of the opposite nation's class. For example, a Kevesi class can only get the master arts of an Agnian class, and vice versa. In combat, you can combine your normal class arts and master arts into fusion arts. Fusion arts, as the name suggests, combines the effects of your class arts and master arts at the cost of both cooldowns. For example, you can use a front attack boosting evasive art and a front attack boosting art to have the combined boost of both arts, along with evading every attack the enemy deals as a fusion art. One of my favorite fusion art combinations is a break and topple art, and seeing both effects happen at the same time. But unlike master arts, master skills aren't restricted by nation, so you can make nearly limitless combinations like using capable hands, which allows you to have your talent art up going into a fight, or ultimate Qigong, which gives up to a 50% physical attack debuff onto the enemy. The master arts and skills are also a huge incentive to acquire heroes and complete ascension quests and side stories. But skills aren't the only thing that enhances your build, as you have a wide variety of gems and accessories to choose from. Gems have changed a lot since their inclusion in the original Xenoblade. No more silly, to you, to me. Now gems work more like ox cores, where you need to find the materials to craft them or use a brand new currency, gold Nopon coins. Gems go up to 10 tiers, and if you craft a higher tier, it'll automatically upgrade that gem to that tier, so you can grind up to tier 10 gems from tier 2 or 3, even if that grind will be a little tedious. Gems have 4 types: Attacker, Defender, Healer, and General Combat. Attacker is centralized on boosting attackers, with standouts like Analyze Weakness, which boosts your crit damage, and Steel Cleaver, which straight up boosts your attack. Defender has gems like Tailwind, which increases your agility, and Brimming Spirit, which increases your aggro gains. Healer has some standout gems like Swelling Blessing, which boosts the power of buffs applied to yourself, Refined Blessing, which extends the duration of buffs applied to yourself by 50%, and lastly, Life-Saving Expertise, which speeds up the revival process, along with you getting a small healing stat bump of a maximum of 15. General Combat gems have some of my favorites, like Steady Striker, which reduces the cooldown between auto attacks, giving some classes a pseudo stutter stepping feel, Double Strike, which gives you a chance of auto attacking twice, and Ironclad, which just gives you a health bump. All of these gem effects can be combined with class skills, and the same goes for accessories. For example, you could use the Fraternal Badge accessory, which boosts your art recharge speed when non-defenders are targeted by 50%, and a Protector's Pride skill from the Guardian Commander class to get a 100% boost on your recharge speed, which gives you near constant uptime on your arts. There are countless other combinations that you can have with master arts, skills, gems, and accessories, which gives the combat system a whole lot of depth. Some of my favorite classes are Ogre because of its skills that lower break resistance and its pretty decent damage output, Flash Fencer mainly because of capable hands, which allows me to go into battle with Lucky 7 immediately, Full Metal Jaguar for churning out massive ether damage, Lone Exile not only for the Xenoblade 1 art references, but also how fun it is spamming its talent art, and Cursor being an absolute damage dealer, with every crit increasing overall damage, meshes well with other skills and gems, Signifier summoning a fuck ton of buffs and spreading it to the party, but lacking in the healing department, Soul Hacker being the most creative class with all of its arts and skills come from unique monsters, giving the class an insane amount of customization. Troubadour is an excellent healer, giving the party faster art recharge rates. Seraph has become a recent favorite of mine due to the Archsage's Gauntlet, with the ability to deal massive damage at the cost of your health and even more when enemies are launched. Life Sage is great if you want an exceptional healer with short art cooldowns, and lastly, Lapidaris, boosting critical rates and allowing crit heal. But classes are only a third of the Xenoblade 3 combat experience. We still have 2 core pillars to go over. Next up, we have the feature that sets it apart from the other Xenoblade entries, Ouroboros. Pressing left on the D-pad lets you interlink with their respective Ouroboros member to transform into the interlinked Ouroboros forms. There are 6 Ouroboros forms, 3 for the Kavesi and Agnian trios respectively, each with their own skill trees for upgrades throughout the game. Similar to Xenoblade 1, you can link skills from the opposing Ouroboros pair. You initially have one soul link slot, but you can unlock another by completing side stories. Another incentive to do side stories along with upgrading classes. When you are interlinked, you are invincible and have a heat gauge that gradually builds up over time. When the heat gauge is filled, you are kicked out of the interlinked form due to being overheated, and you are unable to interlink for some time until the cooldown ends. You can extend this duration by purchasing upgrades from the soul tree. Ouroboros have a different set of arts compared to the normal arts. These arts have no cooldown, but they can be used twice in a row. The Ouroboros talent art is filled by cancelling auto attacks in arts or arts into arts. The talent arts tend to be quite strong, with varying effects like a break and topple launch combo or party evasion. You have an interlink level that can increase the strength of your attacks, and arts that can be increased by performing fusion arts. Certain arts get new properties once you reach interlink level 3, like Break All for Phantom Slash and Smash All for Rolling Smash. Using Ouroboros at the right time could be life or death, like interlinking to tank a devastating attack, or using an Ouroboros art that revive the whole party at the cost of the interlink form being overheated. The reaction effects from Xenoblade 1 and 2, with the Break, Topple, Launch, Smash combo returning as the damage combo, along with Break, Topple, Daze, and a brand new reaction effect, Burst, being introduced to complete the Soothing/Item combo. As the combo effect suggests, Burst soothes the rage, along with dropping items for you to collect, a property that was once given to Smash. But in return, Smash's damage has been cranked up tenfold, which can do insane damage in just one attack. Pulling off Smash and reaching the damage cap and chain attacks is always so satisfying. But speaking of chain attacks, just like the previous numbered Xenoblade games, chain attacks are radically different from game to game. The chain attack gauge can be filled by performing roll actions and reaction combos. Once it's filled, you can initiate the chain attack. Chain attacks in 3 have you completing chain orders, which have varying effects depending on your chosen chain order. Once a chain order is selected, a third of the chain attack gauge will be depleted. To complete a chain order, you must fill the gauge by accumulating tactical points, or TP, from arts. You can gain additional TP based on your role, like taking aggro, healing the party, or attacking in front. Using a party member during a chain attack round will expend them for the duration of the chain attack. Once you complete a chain order, your damage multiplier increases, and the respective character will perform a chain art and activate the order's completion bonus. After the round, a depleted party member has a chance to reactivate for the next round, with the number of members reactivating increasing with every threshold past 100% of the TP gauge reached. You reactivate 2 members once you reach Bravo, which is 150%, and 3 members once you reach Amazing, which is 200%. Each role has its own specific abilities within chain attacks. Attackers have the First Blood ability, which multiplies your TP gains from your attack by 25% if the attacker was the first to start the order. Healers have the Point Limit ability, in which healers can only get to 99% of the TP gauge, allowing an attacker to rack up high TP for a Bravo or an Amazing. Lastly, defenders have the Back in Action ability, which activates when a defender completes an order. It will guarantee a reactivation of the party member with the highest TP. Besides chain orders, you can activate Ouroboros orders, which is done by choosing the chain orders of the respective Ouroboros pair. Ouroboros orders reactivate all party members and give a plus 10 TP bonus for every attack at the cost of ending the chain attack right after the order. You can also activate Ouroboros orders by initiating a chain attack while being interlinked at level 3. You can do both members' Ouroboros orders back to back via this method, but it doesn't deal as much overall damage compared to a normal chain attack. Killing the enemy in a chain attack gives you overkill, just like Xenoblade 2, which multiplies your XP gains by the amount of damage you do within the overkill period. The main difference between overkill in 2 and 3 is that the starting overkill percentage is higher in 3 than it was in 2. Normally heroes act as the AI controlled 7th party member, but in chain attacks, it's their time to shine. Heroes have an exclusive chain order that doesn't expend the chain attack gauge. On top of that, heroes have their own unique hero chain abilities, like multiplying TP gains of the whole party, guaranteeing an Amazing upon completion of the order, and preventing the order from completing at 100% when you act with another character. The best part about hero orders is that they stack with main party orders, along with bringing some depth to chain attacks. Going for an ether build, you can use Melia and Uni's chain orders for a 100% ether defense reduction. Need another chain attack round? Complete Fiona's chain order for an extension of the chain attack gauge. Want to see TP number go up? Use Sagiri for some crazy TP numbers for heroic chain ability. Some of your allies down before the chain attack even started? Complete Nia's order to get your party back up for the rest of the chain attack. Heroic chains and hero orders give a lot of depth to an already deeply complex chain attack system. My only gripe with chain attacks is how long they can be at times, especially since QTEs aren't present in this game and you'll be watching a lot of animations with no way of speeding it up or skipping them. But it doesn't detract too much from chain attacks. Swapping characters, classes, interlinking, and chain attacks bring an addicting gameplay loop that is only matched by Xenoblade 2's combat. Any combat system will need some baddies to be tested, and Xenoblade 3 nails that department as well. Xenoblade has always nailed creature designs with a lot of returning creatures from 1 and 2, along with some new faces like Golkins, Quarduns, the adorable Ottles, and return of the OG, the Xenoblade 1 Brog. I never thought I'd see the day. There are some new enemy types as well. We have the standard normal enemies, the returning unique monsters, and 2 new enemy types, elite monsters and lucky monsters. Lucky monsters have a chance of dropping a rare item, and elite monsters give higher XP, CP, and gold gains by 250, 300, and 350% respectively. These multipliers get combined with the overkill multiplier from chain attacks, so you can net huge level and class experience from one elite monster. Elite monsters eliminate all grind for levels in the game, as experience is easy to get as long as you overkill them, along with the returning in level up feature from Xenoblade 2 via the rest areas. Unique monsters work as they do in Xenoblade 2, allowing you to rematch them at the gravestone, but you can now skip travel to the gravestone directly. The only annoyance is that death will send you back to your last skip travel point instead of the gravestone. Super bosses have a unique gravestone that can have their level increased once you defeat them. It adds a lot of replayability for super bosses past defeating them once. Some of my favorite fights are the Moebius fights, with each Moebius having a unique ability that they use in combat, whether that be Jay's mud puppets or Ai's illusions. Some of my favorite fights have to go to M taking control of one of the party members, or S stopping time during the fight. It's always so cool seeing abilities and cutscenes translated straight into gameplay. The tutorials are great at teaching you the mechanics of the game, and if you're confused about the mechanics, there are the combat drills that you can do with a practice battle on the mechanic to refresh you on that. My only complaint is that the tutorials are very hand-holdy, restricting you until the tutorial is over. Why would they do such a thing? Yeah. Another complaint from combat I have is the post-battle lines and the lack of variety. This is probably done so we can get so much travel dialogue, but it's kinda disappointing coming from previous Xenoblade games, especially Xenoblade 2 and its absolute treasure trove of post-battle quotes. Even though I find Xenoblade 2's combat more satisfying with its fusion combos and bursting orbs, Xenoblade 3's combat is amazing and is the perfect fusion of the original that started it all and its sequel.
It's good to keep a record.
The main party has always been a delight throughout the Xeno series, delivering amazing moments throughout each entry, and of course, Xenoblade 3's Ouroboros continues to follow that tradition. Ouroboros is comprised of 6 soldiers, 3 from Keves, Noah, Lance, and Uni, and 3 from Agnes, Mio, Senna, and Tyon. Each soldier represents a race within the remains of the Bionis and Mechanis, and all the rest. Noah is a Homs, Lance is a Machina, Uni is a Hyentia, Mio is a Gormati Flesh Eater, Senna is a Blade, and Tyon is a Blade Eater. Noah is our protagonist, who is an Offseer, who sees off the bodies of fallen comrades and tends to have a philosophical view on life. Lance is the best friend archetype, similar to Ryan from Xenoblade 1, being a confident man who wants the glory with a sense of guilt towards the death of his friend Yorn earlier on in his life. Uni is the brash hero of the Kavesi trio, always able to speak her mind, and have some of the funniest lines in the game. Mio is the deuteragonist of the game, an Agnian Offseer who has a gentle personality who battles the limited life she has left, and wonders what she'll leave behind. Tyon is the tactician of the group, it's literally in his class name, who is quite melancholic due to past events in his life. He is also accompanied by his weapon, the Mondo, which has some cute and awesome interactions throughout the game. And lastly, the girl with the goal, Senna the Munchkin, who is obsessed with muscle training but lacks self-confidence. All of them bounce off each other beautifully. If it weren't for my personal attachment to the Ouroboros crew, this main party would have been my favorite. Unlike previous Xeno games, where certain members join the party at further points in the game, you get the 6 Ouroboros members by the end of the first chapter, allowing for more opportunities for this party to grow as the game progresses. And what an opportunity it was. Every party member goes through their own arc and has some incredible growth, whether it is Mio battling her limited lifespan, Lance trying to figure out what he wants to do in his life after becoming Ouroboros, Sana learning to stop imitating others and have more confidence in herself, Uni confronting and overcoming the ghosts of her past, and Tyon overcoming the loss of his mentor and becoming closer with others. I purposely left Noah out, as I'll delve further with him in a later section. Every party member has a character moment that stands out, whether that be Mio's talk with Noah and punching Moebius OMP in Chapter 4, Sana and Lance's suicide gambit in Chapter 5, Uni's fight against D in Chapter 4, Tyon at the end of Chapter 3 with Isard and during the fight against M in Chapter 5, and Noah's clashes with N past Chapter 5. All of these moments are memorable and stand toe-to-toe with the series' best moments. These moments are enhanced by the incredible voice acting within the game. Xenoblade games have always had some fantastic voice acting with its use of UK-based talent, with the first game having an incredible English dub that is remembered fondly even today.
You will know the pain and suffering you caused the Emperor and Fiora!
Xenoblade 2's dub wasn't the best, as it started out quite rough due to being rushed, but was pretty good toward the end of the game.
I'm doing it for myself. If it helps put smiles on people's faces, helps them live their lives together, then that's my role in this world!
Xenoblade 3's dub is absolutely amazing from start to finish. Like Xenoblade 2, there are various accents throughout Aionios, like Uni's Cockney accent, Mio's Welsh accent, which is standard for the Gormati, Sana's American accent, which is consistent with Blades in Xenoblade 2, Noah having a Southern English accent, Fiona having a Scottish accent, those in the city having an Australian accent, and etc. Some break the mold, like Samurai and soldiers lacking the Australian accents, and some Agni and Blade soldiers having a British accent. The main cast's performances are spectacular, with Harry McIntyre giving a stellar performance as Noah in some of Xenoblade 3's best scenes. His performance as N was also exceptional, nailing some of the greatest scenes in chapters 5, 6, and 7.
It's unbearable. Seeing life slip away from you. Even though they're right there. What am I even doing?
If the world holds our lives back, I will end it! It's as simple as that! It is impossible. I tried. We tried to walk that path and failed. You're full of shit! You never tried, you're just a coward! What did you...
With the eclipse, 1 month from now, the girl will meet her long-awaited end. Why don't we honor it at the castle? Make it a day to remember. Well, does that not please you? What a magnificent sideshow it will be. My feelings have never changed. They're the same as they've always been. They're for you, Mio. The time I had with you meant everything to me. But now, it's all gone. If she truly is gone, I'll have to redo it all. Watch me rewind our clocks back to the start. Noah, my long shadow, you have stolen her away from me. I will extinguish you and take her back. Mio is mine. She's not yours. She's mine. You are nothing. She belongs only to me.
Jack Bardo nails the struggle of Lands and what he wants to do, along with having some funny interactions with the party.
You now, scum!
Lance!
Sorry.
This sort of stuff. It's about all I'm good for, really.
Hey now, don't go lumping me in with Lance. I took my education seriously.
Ah, shut up. Don't flatter yourself. Our friend Jorn. He became Moebius. But that wasn't him. That's his life's purpose? Like Spark it is. So I think maybe I want to figure out the purpose of my own life. I want to get stronger. And if Jorn surpassed me, I'll get even stronger than that.
Kitty Archer's performance as Uni was one of my favorites, as she has some of the funniest lines in the game, with some of my favorite one-to-one moments.
How do we discover who we really are?
That from the husk.
Yeah.
You won't find yourself there.
Huh?
You've got to look to the present and the future only. The one in the past, it isn't you. You didn't make that, and it's not yours.
Make that?
But look to the future, and you can build yourself up however you like. You can become whoever you want to be.
I can. You there, in the back, feeling lonely because you haven't been punched yet? You better enjoy that while it lasts, because I'm about to rearrange both your mugs. She's a phony, that's what she is. Even if it's her in the flesh up there, I'll rip her off her high horse.
Yes, for she is the 1,000th
You think
soul to welcome
they're gonna execute us too after this?
Guess so.
You hear it? Do you
So
not?
it's
Here.
back into the cycle.
Now echoes her voice.
Back into the same old crap
She was
again.
born of me, and now returns.
Wish we could have gone a little further.
Amy Fionn Edwards has my favorite performance in the game as Mio and M, with the cutscene at Mactha Camp right before you fight Ethel and Kamaravi is one of my favorites. Her speech after the punch she gave OMP left me at the edge of my seat, and of course, the end of Chapter 5 with the Eclipse Homecoming.
Say, wanna exchange flutes?
What? But isn't that...
I guess it's a little too icky.
No. I don't care about that. I'm just trying
I
to
just
say...
like it to be used a little longer. To make up for the time me Abby lost.
Yeah?
Stop!
Stop?
Stop toying with everyone's lives! What did they ever do to you? Why? All they wanted was their wish to be realized. You turned everything into a game, cast them away like dolls. These are our lives here. They're not some toys you can just play with. Oh no. Tell me why.
I didn't want to lose any more.
What do you mean anymore? Everything we held dear is gone. You took them all away. And you dare talk about your feelings of loss. You'll be... To my Noah, the time with me is everything. I just want it to end. Moebius, like me, we can exist only by taking the souls of those that grace this world. Nobody pays the slightest mind to the thoughts and dreams those many lives espouse. We gorge ourselves, covered every ember, just to delay our inevitable ruin. That's why you want to disappear. If I die, maybe he'll see. Maybe he could somehow realize what it is that I wish. That would be enough. Afterwards, it'll be up to you two. To walk the path we ought to have walked, he and I.
Oliver Huben's performance as Tyon is spectacular, with him nailing Tyon's timid, melancholic nature and having some cute scenes with Uni.
Time's run for 10 years only. But this pocket watch has already lived for longer than that, by being passed from Nimwe's hands to mine. What Guernica said to us on that battlefield, I don't know what you made of it exactly, but frankly, to me, it was a load of nonsense. Not even enough to push us together. Only 4th? Huh. Wait a minute. There's Noah and Lance. Did she count Joran? Huh. Why am I only listing guys? Just chill out, Tyon.
Lastly, like the others, Rebecca LaChance's performance as the girl with the gall, Senna, was also incredible. Especially when Senna was at her lowest.
You found determination. You get a little pep talk from your friends, huh?
Nobody gave me anything. It's because I'm part of the team. I'm only just starting to figure it out now. But I'm gonna change. Both me and this world. Thank you, Mimi. Gasp! All the food's completely gone.
Xenoblade 3 wouldn't have been the same without these incredible actors providing these amazing performances. Honorable mentions would go to Taran Calendar as Riku, giving the most shocking Napon performance by far.
He's our enemy.
And who decide that? Yorin ever say himself? That he enemy?
He didn't. I did.
In absence of complete picture?
Well, but he's different.
So after meet just once, Lance make up mind?
Then what are we gonna do?
Only thing friends can. Keep moving forward.
And lastly, Jenna Coleman and Katrin Mayhew as Melia and Nia respectively. They had to be here somehow, come on.
I had a long dream. A very, very long dream. In my dream, youths were fighting. And as many times as they fell, they always got back up again. A dream of young people simply trying to survive.
Oh, wow. That bastard! Stuck me good, he did. 2 centuries to the side and things that have been a sight worse.
The lip sync has also been improved. Previous Xenoblade games were lip synced to the original Japanese audio. And while Xenoblade 1 masked this pretty well, Xenoblade 2 didn't, with many egregious examples throughout the game. Xenoblade 3 has 2 separate lip syncs for the Japanese and English audio respectively. The trend started by Future Connected. Wow, something good actually came out of Future Connected. That's a shock. And I cannot be happier for it. Gone are the weird moments of silence while their mouths were still moving. One last part of the voice acting I love is the in-universe swear words. This was probably done so the game would retain the T for teen rating as the games had before, but it's just funny hearing bitch along with snuff, mutter, and Spock. Unlike previous Xenoblade games, heart-to-hearts were not present in Xenoblade 3, but their absence was not missed, as all the discussions and quests have so much personality and charm. Not even mentioning the interactions within the cutscenes themselves. The amazing moments, stellar performances, and unforgettable arcs make Ouroboros one of my favorite main parties within the series. Xenoblade 3 starts off with a bang, as you are flung straight into a battle between Kevez and Agnes after seeing the worlds merge in the cutscene before it. Xenoblade and pacing haven't always been best buds, with the first game having an exceptional beginning with the attack on Colony 9, then mellowing out till Prison Island. Xenoblade 2 starts off really slow, giving off a bad first impression for most players before picking up at the end of Chapter 3. Xenoblade 3 hooks you within the first 2 hours of its first chapter, and it doesn't disappoint. The first chapter introduces us to the Kevesi trio and the war-torn world of Aionios. Each soldier has a lifespan of 10 years, or terms as they are called in universe, and are born for the sake of fighting, as killing Agnians or Kevesi fills up the flame clock. In Aionios, the flame clock is needed for survival. As the flame clock drains, the soldiers of the colony get weaker and weaker till they die when the flame clock drains out. The only way to fill the flame clock is by taking the lives of others, so soldiers are put into a perpetual war of survival. Once a soldier reaches the end of their 10th term, they are given a homecoming ceremony by Offseers to send them off. Towards the end of the first chapter, the Kavesi trio is sent on a special operation to recover an ether source from an unknown third faction within this endless war, and they were later stopped by a trio of Agnian soldiers, who we later know as the Agnian Trio, and they begin to clash. During their feud, Noah began to wonder why were they fighting in the first place, and began trying to convince Mio, but to no avail. They are interrupted by a man of the unknown faction named Guernica Van Dam, who makes them think about who is the real enemy in this war. Guernica is wounded, as the 6 soldiers later encounter the real enemy, a humongous creature named Moebius. Moebius overpowers the soldiers, but in one of his last moments, Guernica activates a mysterious ether source and grants the 6 soldiers the power of Ouroboros. Using this new power, Ouroboros defeats Moebius, and in return, they are made the enemy of the world. In his dying moments, Guernica tells the 6 soldiers to head to Sword March, the land pierced by a great sword, in search of the city for answers about this world. As Ouroboros continues to travel towards Sword March, the cruelties of Aionios are on full display. As a soldier bound by the flame clock, you don't really have a choice in your life. You are forever living as a tool rather than living as a person. Soldiers don't have emotions like love or wonder about life around them. They are tunnel visioned into becoming slaughter machines for an omnipotent being who only sees them as an extension of their life force. Even if you die, whether it was from dying in battle or being sent off, all of your memories and experiences would have been for naught, as you are reborn as a clean slate in the cradle. There will be no one to inherit your legacy, as those people would be either dead or won't live long enough to do anything with it. Even if you climb the colony ranks and reach gold rank, you are mercilessly slaughtered by Moebius, so that you can restart the cycle all over again. An endless war with life stuck in stasis, black fog slowly annihilating the world, and having a birthmark that fades out as you get closer to the eventual release of death. It's a suffocating feeling that makes you wonder about your life. What was the point? Does this even matter? Tayon's monologue in chapter 3 perfectly encapsulates what living in Aionios is like.
I put down my weapon, look around at my companions, and feel relief. Thinking, finally, another day down. Then I think of tomorrow and the tremors are back. Will I see the same faces when I wake? Will I even be around to see them? Huh.
Easier with the mark, I suppose. You know when it's coming. But when you're in a scrap...
Can you really speak for them, though? For someone nearing the end?
Huh?
Because I couldn't tell you. All we can possibly do is wonder what it's like. What can one feel? Contentment, perhaps? Or sheer horror?
I'd really hope it's not fear.
Me too.
Even in this nihilistic world of eternity, the soldiers are given a choice. The off-seeing homecoming ceremony. Prior to his creation, soldiers at the end of their term would die by getting murdered by their consul and get sent back into the cycle. Moebius, Am, and Chris created the homecoming ceremony to give soldiers peace at the end of their lifespan rather than being sent back into the endless hell cycle of war. Even something so small can mean a lot, but the homecoming ceremony was like a band-aid for the real problem in the world, and that's where Ouroboros comes in. After unlocking the power of Ouroboros, the 6 soldiers are free from the flame clocks, and more importantly, aren't bound by the life granted by Moebius. They can experience life however they want within the limited lifespans they have. This can lead to some trying to find a goal in life besides fighting, and other members finding a lot more value in life. Noah and Mio, being the 2 Offseers, obviously fall in the former category, with them seeing off friends or even foes, because they're just like them at the end of the day. People with aspirations ripped away by the cruelties of the world, just like the many soldiers in Aionios. It's an Offseer's duty. Some don't care about it, but it alleviates tensions that could have been aroused from the ones who survived. That's their choice. Once Ouroboros destroys the flame clock of a colony's Pharaonis, they no longer need to fight, and can observe the world around them. For the first time, these soldiers can experience the wonders of life, like how different each of them are to discovering the world around them. It's all up to them. Some soldiers embrace their newfound freedoms, while others still cling on to how things used to be. But these moments don't last for long, as Moebius would wipe out liberated colonies, as those soldiers are no longer beneficial to them when the flame clock doesn't bind them. They attempted to do this during Chapter 4, with the Annihilator pointed directly at Colony 4, but are stopped by Ouroboros later in the same chapter. But back to Ouroboros. 3 of the Ouroboros members suffer from the sacrifices of their fellow comrades. The sacrifices are a heavy burden on them, especially Mio and Lance. Mio is a kind and gentle woman on the outside, but she stresses about the duration of her life as, at the beginning of the game, she only has 3 months left before her homecoming, and that time dwindles as the game progresses. This stress would lead to her outburst with Noah in Chapter 4, with her ever-dwindling time. She later tells Noah about Miyabi, her younger off-scene partner, and her sacrifice at Colony Omega, and tells Mio to live in her stead, despite Mio being older. This scene leads to Noah and Mio exchanging flutes, as Mio wants Miyabi's flute to be used a little longer even after she's gone. Lance suffers from the guilt of Yorn's sacrifice in the Battle of Colony 14, and becoming more hung up on it once Yorn reappears as a Moebius. But what these two have in common is choice. Miyabi chose to stay behind to sacrifice herself, so Mio and Senna could live. Yorn chose to save lands from the falling debris at the cost of his own life. These choices weren't bound by the will of Moebius. They were done by them and them alone. Ouroboros has impacted those around them, including Ethel from Colony 4. In Chapter 3, we learn of Ethel's rivalry with Kamarabi and her sparing him in their last battle due to a malfunction in his Furanas. Ethel sparing Kamarabi led to Colony 4 getting its rank stripped to dirt because of this action. Ethel was sent away from Colony 4 to Kevis Castle to speak with the Queen, which leads to Moebius targeting Colony 4 with the Annihilator. To prevent this, she teams up with Kamarabi and custom-designed Furanaces to use every ounce of their life force to fight Ouroboros. During their fight with Ouroboros, the consuls attempt to manipulate Kamarabi into a mindless beast set on destroying Ouroboros, but Kamarabi pulls off one of the greatest moments in the game.
Look, you can see your enemy right there.
Enemy. That is my enemy. 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 Enemy!
Kamarabi, what's wrong with you? Kamarabi! Oh no. The iris. I knew it. Kamarabi!
This is... I am under no one's yoke!
Kamarabi, you really... your own eye.
I will be as they are. I am free!
Kamarabi made his choice when he gouged his eye. He is a free man who will make his own choices and will not be bounded by Moebius. Hearing this, Ethel stops fighting Ouroboros and commits to her dream, the one choice in her life that was in her control, fighting Kamarabi to the very end. Even the consuls meddling with their flame clocks couldn't stop them from fighting. This was the one moment that they were free like Ouroboros. In Chapter 5, Ouroboros finally reaches Swordmarch and encounters the third faction again, now known as the Lost Numbers. Their leader, Monica Van Dam, daughter of Guernica Van Dam, the man who told them to head towards Swordmarch in the first place, leads them to the city. The city is an isolated nation, hiding within the Great Sword in Swordmarch, that has been fighting Moebius for decades. Upon reaching the city, Ouroboros is introduced to a completely different world. How life is supposed to be. Being born, growing up, finding love, starting a family, growing old, and return to nature as the cycle begins anew for another soul. It's the beauty of life, and how much value it can hold. And this is just in the city. Imagine a world where everyone can live like this. And that's what the Lost Numbers is fighting for. A world where you can live the way you want, not bound by the flame clocks or Moebius. The baby scene is one of my favorites in the game, as it perfectly encapsulates the beauty of life and perfectly sums up why the Lost Numbers fight. But even with all of its freedoms, the city isn't perfect. Many citizens within the city are blissfully ignorant of the situation around them and the endless bloodshed between Kevis and Agnes. Why care about some soldiers who will die in 10 years when I can be happy in the now? Eerily similar to Moebius. their enemy, just without all the life-draining parts. Monica's dialogue with Ouroboros in the scene encapsulates this to a T.
Though, some of us around here still ain't too keen on the idea.
What?
So, those people from before?
They're happy living in the moment. As long as they can hide away and cover their eyes, they don't give a damn about the rest.
So our lives mean nothing to them?
If they can't see or hear you, then as far as they're concerned, you don't even exist.
Closing their eyes to what's in front of them.
A lot of folks here think that way.
But that's just like Moebius. Then the only difference is whether or not they benefit directly.
The city can also put pressure on others, leading them down a choice they were never meant for. Of course, I'm talking about Shania and her amazing character. Shania is a part of House Reed, one of the families of the 6 founders and descendants of the first Ouroboros. Shania loved painting, and multiple people praised her for her skills, but the loss of her older sister Titania and her father left her with her overly critical mother and her high expectations for Shania to keep up the Reed legacy. No matter what Shania did, it wasn't enough for her mother, who crushed her confidence. This led Shania to eventually give up her passion for painting and focus on becoming an Ouroboros member. But Shania always lived in the shadow of her friend, Gondor, doing her best to mimic her via the boxing bandages and weapon choice. This in turn frustrated Gondor, who saw that she was copying her and not being true to herself. Gondor would try to give Shania some advice to get her back on her feet, but it would fall on deaf ears as her delivery came off harsh and arrogant. In response, Shania tried her best to one-up Gondor, but she never came out of her shadow. And that's where Moebius came in. Moebius introduced her to the flame clock system and became obsessed with it, whereas Ouroboros saw the flame clock system as a prison of eternity, Shania saw the system as an opportunity for a do-over, that potentially in another life, she could be the star and not be in the shadow of others. This would lead her to betray the lost numbers in the party by selling them out to Moebius and eventually becoming one herself. It all ended in a duel between her and Gondor, where she finally realized her true passion, her choice in life. Painting was her path all along, and remembered those who supported her passion before passing on. Xenoblade 3 is a story about freedom and choice in an endless world. Some get influenced onto the wrong path, while some choose the one that's right for them. Some are chained by the laws of the world, while others are free to do whatever they like. But within those who have freedom are those who strive for change and allow the world to move forward. Life is a precious thing we take for granted, and sometimes I see myself saying things in my head like, what's the point? What's the value in my life? But sometimes we just have to take that next step, even if that step is frankly terrifying. We shouldn't huddle ourselves in the now, but always look forward to the future.
Yes, that's right. In creating my stories, I always try to portray the enemies in such a way that even a powerful enemy has their principles, justice, and righteousness, so that we can partly sympathize with them. That is why I have always tried to cast the enemy in an ambiguous light, rather than making it clear whether they are good or bad. By doing so, players can understand and immerse themselves in the enemy's perspective, and I think that is sometimes what makes the story interesting. But this time, I wanted to depict it from a different angle. The reason is that I think power actually takes many forms, and that it is not about philosophy, justice, or righteousness, but more often it is about something as simple as dignity or greed. Tetsuya Takahashi.
The Xeno series has always excelled at delivering incredible villains for the party to go against. Standouts like the deliciously over-the-top Momkar from Xenoblade 1, the sympathetic villains like Graf and Jin from Xenogears and Xenoblade 2, respectively. Where does Xenoblade 3 sit in the series' long history of beloved baddies? Well, it would have been very hard to top Xenoblade 2's Rogues Gallery of Jin, Malos, and Amalthus, so Takahashi took a different approach. In the classic Takahashi fashion, reusing elements from his past works to create something new, and the Moebius are born. Moebius is similar to the Testaments from Xenosaga, with both being the deceased, brought back from the dead, by a higher power to keep the world within an endless cycle. There are 26 consoles, each named after a letter in the alphabet, that can transform into Moebius, and are responsible for keeping this world in the perpetual state, or what they call the endless now. Have you ever wished that something would last forever? Maybe a thrill? A romance that you wished lasted for eternity? That's what the endless now provides, so you can experience that for eternity. Sure, it's at the cost of innocent people constantly murdering each other, but you can experience that forever. The endless now and Moebius, as a concept, are amazing, but the execution... I don't know. Most Moebius, besides a few standouts, are cartoonishly evil, and lack any kind of substance towards them. They felt less of a threat as they should be, and more of a roadblock, as I know they'll just fold to Ouroboros. It was cool seeing the consoles pop up in hero quests, as my initial reaction was that Moebius would have been confined to the main story, but I've lost all my excitement once I got into my 4th or 5th hero quest. But that's only for most Moebius, not the standouts you see throughout the story. These standouts include D, J, S, I, T, N, M, and Z. These Moebius represent an emotion, or are so unique from the rest. D represents bloodlust, J and S represents envy, I represents companionship, T represents freedom, N and M represent regret, and Z is the representation of fear. D is a great character to the party. He's a dollar store Mumcar, but at the end of the day, it's still Mumcar. D is always so entertaining whenever he shows up, just to shit talk the party.
Sorry, pals. Afraid I can't let you do that.
You?
Sup? Been a while, eh?
Moebius! How'd you figure it out?
It's great. I only wish that he popped up more than 3 or 4 times. That's really how much I loved him. Jay, or Yorn, missed the mark personally. While his reappearance after death, as Moebius, really helped Lanz in his character arc, Yorn's character arc was kinda rough. Yorn falls into the same category as Shania, a person who never amounted to anything in life and had a passion for carving, but chose to sacrifice himself for Lanz in his final mortal life. When he became Moebius, he saw the depths of his past lives, frustrated he never amounted to anything, and as Moebius, he became filled with envy, and he would rise above his friends. But it just felt like his development was rushed towards the end, but I did like how his final death ended, like his mortal one. A choice to sacrifice himself for his friends. A meaningful choice in the end. Shania, in my personal opinion, has the better execution of the two, but majority of her story is locked behind side content. Irma, or I, always cared for Fiona till the very end, even when she was switching sides between Kevez and Agnes, because in the end, Fiona was the one she could truly call her friend. Triton is awesome because he's a man of the sea. Yes, that is a Xenogears rep. Wait, I already made that joke. And he's free-spirited to the point that he even forgot why he became Moebius in the first place. He also has one of the best classes in the game. Now it is time to talk about N and M. But to do that, we must talk about Noah and Mio. Noah and Mio are 2 very unique individuals within Aionios. They can constantly reincarnate after death, and even beyond a homecoming. Similar to Abel/Faye and Ellie from Xenogears. N and M are failed incarnations of Noah and Mio, who were freed from the flame clocks and fought Moebius with the lost numbers in the old city. But after many failed incarnations, Noah ran away from his responsibilities with Mio to start a family, but even that was short-lived. This gave one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the series, as Noah had to say goodbye to his son due to the cruelties of the world set by Moebius. After his death, Noah wakes up inside the auditorium with an origin, where Zed tells him about the Endless Now, and gives him a choice. Now seeing the past lives with Mio and the fight against Moebius, Noah saw that he was in an endless cycle and took Zed's choice for a chance to be together with the woman he loved, Mio, for eternity. But in order to bring her back, Noah needed the embers of those within the old city to resurrect her as M. And in that moment, Noah was gone. And all that remained was a man filled with guilt who would do anything to be together with his beloved, named N. Mio, now resurrected as M, was horrified at what he'd done to bring her back, and saw that N wasn't the Noah she loved. M never wanted to live for eternity, but only wanted to spend the precious moments with the man she loved. On an occasion when she tried to kill herself, M was given the responsibility of the key to the Cloud Cube by Nia to give it to those who will need it in the future. As stated before, M, along with Chris, was the creator of the homecoming ceremony, as she wanted soldiers to be free from the endless prison, just like how she wanted to be free from the endless prison that currently binds her. The hopes of N and M transformed into the Noah and Mio we follow through the story. This was an opportunity for N, as defeating Noah would set aside his guilt and prove to himself that his choice of becoming Moebius was right, and Noah would go down the same path himself. Noah and Mio's relationship is one of the highlights of the game, with Noah kind of being more of a straight man until chapter 4, with Mio's outbursts about the decision to head towards Kenneth's castle, finally showing some flaws within Noah's character. Chapter 5 is where Mio's time limit of her remaining life is at its apex. During the prison breakout, the party is betrayed by Shania and is led into an ambush led by N and M, where M swaps Mio's consciousness via her Moebius power and tells Mio about N and M and exclaims that she wants to stand. Towards the end of the battle, Zed cuts off the Ouroboros power, and the party is captured and confined in the Agnes Castle prison for a month till Mio's homecoming. The party who has gone against all odds and defeated Moebius is now powerless to stop the loss of a friend. Noah bangs the cell door to the point that his hands are bloodied and bruised, the group banging the walls and Senna trying to break the cell from the ceiling, all in an attempt to save Mio. All of these attempts gave M, who was in Mio's body, the will to live on the day before her homecoming. Mio's homecoming comes in, and it's one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the game's pinnacle moment. The party is forced to watch Mio being seen off, while N gloats to Noah, since he's an Offseer, he should see her off. After the homecoming is complete, the remaining members are planned to be executed. N at this moment believes he's won, and was right all along. But that all comes crashing down a few moments later. Noah wakes up in a misty area where a mysterious woman guides him and tells him about N and M, and questions him with all this knowledge, would you accept the now or move on towards the future? With his experiences with Mio and his mentor Chris, Noah decides to move on towards the future instead of going through the endless cycle to save Mio. The mysterious woman reveals herself to be Mio, and more importantly, the Mio that we follow throughout the whole game. Once N realized that the one who died wasn't Mio, but M, all that he's done was for naught. All he had left was regret, and lashed out, blaming Noah for stealing his Mio, blinded to what M wanted in the end. Hell, even Noah admits if he went down a similar path, he would have ended up like N. Later in the final chapter, in one last bout against Ouroboros, N finally forgives himself and becomes part of Noah. N shows how much choices in life can change a person. N became attached to the past and lost sight of who he was, and Noah looked ahead and could possibly live in a future with Mio together. Now on to the true Moebius, X, Y, and Z. X and Y are lackluster, even if X has a cute design, especially in the final fight between them, where they don't even get a cutscene, they just die. Alright, now on to the real Moebius, Z. Z is the collective unconscious sphere of the future and hijacked origin to create the endless now, Aionios. Z thinks this is to the benefit of humanity, as a loser can eventually become a winner within the system, and seeing the struggles of endless war amuses him. One major complaint about Zed is that he barely interacts within the party or acts as an obstacle. Zed works as a motivator for the player in the main party to break the endless cycle by displaying all the world's cruelties throughout the game. But Zed is still one of the weakest villains throughout the series. Moebius as a whole was an interesting concept for the story, but mostly fell flat in the end. Maybe the story DLC will improve Moebius in a substantial way? Who knows? Like I said before, Xenoblade and pacing haven't always been the best buds. The pacing of Xenoblade 3 starts off with an incredible hook in its first chapter, and keeps that pace till its penultimate moment with the Eclipse Homecoming at the end of Chapter 5. But the pacing plummets so hard once you get off Agnes Castle and early Chapter 6. Something very unusual for Xenoblade, as its previous entries always nailed their second halves, with Xenoblade 2 being the prime example. Chapter 6 and 7 were very short compared to the long chapters before it, with Chapter 6 having Mio's side story, and that shit having some weird Lucky 7 bullshit that doesn't really get explained, and Chapter 7 having the Origin Shard MacGuffin quest, which kind of felt like padding towards the end of the game. At the end of Chapter 6, and after a fake-out death, the party finally meets Nia, and she gives them the lore dump on the world. The lore dump has been used in varying ways throughout Xenoblade. It can be used as a twist towards the endgame, or as the culmination of all the information you've accumulated throughout the game. Xenoblade 3's lore dump is confusing at times though. We learn about the worlds slowly reuniting after the end of Xenoblade 1 and 2, and that if they reunite, it would cause the annihilation of both worlds. We also learned the language of light, which wasn't even known until now as a form of communication between both worlds. Construction of Origin and its functions, Moebius corrupting Origin, the Ouroboros stones, and the Sword of the End, aka Lucky 7. You might be wondering, where's the explanation for the Black Fog? At first, there was no explanation for the Black Fog, but after watching JB's video, you should totally watch it by the way, and speaking with him about it, I learned that they do discuss the Black Fog, just very poorly. At the beginning of Nia's explanation, she goes on about pluses and minuses, basically explaining antimatter, which is what the Black Fog essentially is. And I got that from a YouTube video, not the game. Takahashi stated that Xenoblade 3 is a standalone experience, just like the other games. But I feel like you wouldn't get the same experience as those who are veterans. Since Xenoblade 3's scenario heavily relies on the worlds of past games, there are many references throughout Aionios. And while of course, these give amazing connections to past games, but since Aionios relies on it so heavily to the point of having barely any original areas, it wouldn't give new players that same feeling. This contrasts Xenoblade 1 and 2, and while they connect with each other via the experiment, they are self-contained stories with wholly original content at the end of the day. And that made them work. That's what made Xenoblade 2's experiment connection work. It completely threw you out of left field for those who played Xenoblade 1, and those going into Xenoblade 2 as a first-time player into the series. This unfortunately also has an effect on Xenoblade 3's story. In Chapter 6, during Nia's fake-out death, she heals her injuries in the cutscene after D and J are defeated. Of course, I know why she comes back. She's a flesh-eater blade who uses the power of cancer and could never die to Dollstone Mumkar in 13.5 was there. But as a first-time player, the game doesn't really explain it at all, and I find that very frustrating. But back to the positive aspects of Xenoblade 3, like Nia. I love how Nia was presented in Xenoblade 3, with her hiding her true personality with a dignified impression, but to little success. I loved when Senna was looking at Nia, thinking she had some grand plan, and she was just playing along. She's a silly little goofball, also being a mature version of a character from our previous game. Even though she appears in the last hour of the game, Melia is still cool, especially with her new design and better voice direction for Jenna Coleman. Like, oh my god, after what they did to her in Future Connected. Jeez, it's a blessing. I briefly brought up Noah and Mio's relationship in the previous section, and I want to delve further into that. Noah and Mio's romance is the series' best depiction of love since Xenogears. Shulk and Fiora were okay, but had a weird love triangle kind of going on, and their love was kind of sidelined due to Xenoblade 1's plot-heavy narrative. I absolutely adore Rex and Pyromeph's relationship in Xenoblade 2, but it also had a love triangle and emphasis on
Let's show
had.
them 3.
Yeah, that fucking photo is still one of the most insane things to come out of the series. But there were some criticisms some had with them, especially with Xenoblade 2's ending. Noah and Mio is the most natural progression of love I've seen in the trilogy. They start off as enemies, but once they unlock the power of Ouroboros and see the memories of each other, they slowly build an understanding between them. The scene where they exchange flutes showcased this beautifully. After an outburst earlier that night, Mia opens up to Noah about Miyabi. In Chapter 5, where they learn about the birds and the bees, Noah and Mio looking embarrassed after watching a couple kiss makes me feel oh so normal. The game takes this bond and rips you in two with the homecoming, as Noah is powerless to stop the inedible for the woman he loves. Even with all the bruises, he couldn't break the prison door and save her. During the homecoming, Riku tries to give Noah a sliver of hope, with the true power of Lucky 7. But as soon as Mio walks out, that hope gets crushed by the cruel reality that is in front of him. The homecoming scene is brilliant as it perfectly sets up that maybe Noah would save Mio with a new power, giving you, the player, that maybe Ouroboros might come out on top, but crushes you, just like Noah and the party. Even though Noah saw Mio die right before him, he clung to her words about passing on the torch and proceeded toward the future. Because of that, he was able to walk that path together with Mio, even worlds apart. These encounters led him to take a different path, unlike his Moebius self, and understand the meaning of true choice. After the MacGuffin quest, the main party with the newly improved ship is now ready to go into Origin and defeat Zed. Origin is a cool final dungeon, but it is the weakest final dungeon of the trilogy. Nothing memorable really stands out, as it's just a bunch of hallways all with the same colors. The enemies are cool and gives it a unique feel, even though you're really just fighting the Fighting Polygon team from Super Smash Bros. Some cool connections within, like cores in Origin being theorized as core crystals, which would explain how soldiers could come back with no memories intact, and how Moebius can't come back due to corrupted core crystals, but then again, it's just a theory. 2 lame boss fights later, and Ouroboros reaches the auditorium where Zed lies. Zed questions them, why would they want to break free from them now? Ouroboros tells them that they don't want to live in a world without the freedom to choose. The showdown against Zed is thematically the embodiment of the will for change. Even though Zed seals Ouroboros with the powers at the beginning of the fight, they keep pushing towards a better future, regaining their powers throughout the first phase of the fight. Even though time and time again throughout the fight, Zed tells them that what they're doing can possibly bring total annihilation to both worlds, and it doesn't shake their conviction. Towards the end, N and M, who were still within Noah and Mio, sacrifice themselves as Zed can only be defeated by a single intense desire, just like him. They arrive within a simulation with the 2 worlds, with the queens asking for their decision, saying they could change their minds if they wanted to, but that will turn them into Moebius. So Ouroboros stays true to their conviction, even if it meant saying goodbye. With Origin rebooting, the worlds began to separate, as Ouroboros gives their parting gifts to one another. It's a heartbreaking ending, and it almost made me cry seeing them split. Xenoblade 3 shows how precious life is, and how short the now can be. The choice Ouroboros took gave them a chance that maybe they'll meet again in the near future. There are many roads we can take, but which one? That's up to you. You may stumble your way through, but that's alright. All you need to do is look up to your chosen horizon and walk on. When I first finished Xenoblade 3, I felt satisfied, but in the back of my head, I felt like that was it? Xenoblade 3 has an amazing story, but it definitely had a ton of flaws and holes still left to be filled. Lucky 7 and Riku's involvement with the sword is still shrouded in mystery. Why do Noah and Mio reincarnate? Who knows? What is Origin all about? When did Moebius first come into being? What's up with Origin Metal, and where did they find it in both worlds? What really is the Black Fog? Where is the Conduit? Where the hell is Alvis? Whatever happened to Noah's son? What really is Ouroboros? Of course, most, if not all of these questions, will be answered in the story DLC later this year. But that's the problem. In my opinion, the story DLC should enhance the main game like how Torna did in Xenoblade 2. This DLC will have to do all of that, along with showing us the future of Xenoblade. Xenoblade games tend to have most questions answered, with some being left in the air for future installments. Going into Xenoblade 3, I expected some questions to be answered, like the Black Fog that appeared in Peach Connected, but I came up with even more questions and very few answers. I was expecting Xenoblade 3 to show me at least a glimpse into the future of the series, but I'm just as clueless as to where the series is heading as it was back in 2020 when Future Connected was released. Xenoblade 3 feels incomplete, like it's one half of a tale told. Xenoblade 1 and 2 didn't have this problem, even with Xenoblade 2's rushed development cycle. Was it because of the lackluster lore? Or maybe it was all the questions left unanswered? It just felt like that Xenoblade 3 was clashing between its identity of a self-contained story and being the sequel to Xenoblade 1 and 2. This DLC is gonna have to carry.
Tell me why! Is this really what you want? Nothing's gonna get through to him. He's a heartless machine. Like killing Granddad wasn't enough for you?
Oh. Okay, Kakahashi. I'll let you cook because you got me interested.
It's good to keep a record.
A melody as beautiful as life itself. Flutes, violins, French horns, bass, drums, and electric guitars elevate the soundtrack to further heights.
Music can make a great scene into a masterpiece, as it can enhance the feel and tone of the media it is in. Xeno is no different, the series having some head-banging bops, along with having some of the most gut-wrenching tracks I've ever heard. Xenoblade 3 doesn't disappoint, spanning over 140 tracks and having a major flute use within the OST. Xenoblade 3's OST was done by the duo Ace, comprised of Tomori Kudo and Horio Yamanaka, Kenji Hiramatsu, Manami Kyoto, Mariam Abunasser, Yutaka Kunigo, and lastly, Yatunori Mitsuda. Mariam Abunasser may seem like a newcomer to the music team, but she helped arrange many of Mitsuda's compositions in Xenoblade 2, notably Parting and The Tomorrow with You, and she's now composing tracks of her own. Xenoblade 3 now includes dynamic music, so the music will change based on if you got into a battle and where you are within that battle. For example, if the enemy is near death, the game will swap to the climax version of that track. Starting from the top, as per usual, Hiramatsu composed many of the battle themes, like Tactical Action, which is an absolute bop in all of its versions. Keva's battle being an absolute banger with its use of flutes, the combination of violins, piano, and the classic electric guitar. You'll Know Our Name's finale is an incredible unique monster theme and is up there with some of the greats with the use of the electric guitar, piano, violin, and later on, flutes for its climax to create a blood-pumping, unique monster theme. False Queens has a haunting feeling with the choir, and the use of drums and trumpets makes fighting the Fate Queens absolutely menacing. Chain Attack is an absolute bop of a battle theme, with a sick piano solo coming in with the electric guitars, violins, and drums, creating this absolutely hype track. The only downside is that it overwrites other battle themes. Give us a toggle, Monolith. Keva's castle starts off very slow, but becomes very catchy once the drop comes in. The two queens have a special battle theme accompanying them that you can toggle on and off. And man, Hiramatsu knocked it out of the park with brilliant wings. Melia's battle theme. Who knew I needed saxed up Time to Fight by Anna's Shoulder in my life, as this is an absolute bop. Hiromatsu also composed some area themes, like the absolute vibe that is Ego's Wilderness, with a soothing pan flute and acoustic guitar, creating one of my favorite tracks in the game. Ruby Flats is one of the most peaceful tracks in the game, so soothing and calming. Melic Meadows has an adventurous feel to it, completing the exciting Grassy Plain trilogy. Hiromatsu also created a cutscene track that also acts as a battle theme, Words That Never Reached You, which uses a combination of piano, violins, and drums to show the somberness of the characters in various scenes like En, Irma, and Shania, to name a few. Hiromatsu usually does the main cutscene theme of the game by himself, like Engage the Enemy or Counterattack. In this case, Hiromatsu paired up with Mitsuda to create Carrying the Weight of Life, which uses electric guitars, violins, pianos, and flutes to illustrate the fight to survive against Moebius, which includes motifs of Engage the Enemy and Counterattack that never fails to give me goosebumps every time I listen to this track. Ace did many of the area themes, like Agnes Colony, which is a peaceful Japanese-style tune, fitting for Agnes. Erythia Sea is a beautiful track with the use of piano and strings in the later end of the track, perfect for going around this massive region. The Great Sea Stirs is a bombastic theme with the wonder of exploration. Makes using the bravery worthwhile even with its awkward controls. Dagnall Desert is a haunting track for a lone desert with no titan or history left within it. Magnus Castle is one of my favorite tracks in the game, with its night theme being one of the best night themes in the series. Ace also did some of the battle themes, like the boss theme, Immediate Threat, with its use of electric guitars, drums, violins, and choir to show an intense battle with an unknown enemy, with the intensity being upped by 5 notches in its climax. A formidable enemy is an absolute funk fest, with its use of piano, drums, electric guitars, and bass for an absolute banger that always makes fighting elite monsters a delight. Moebius Battle is an amazing battle theme with choir and drums illustrating the sheer power of Moebius. Moebius Interlink is a continuation of the Moebius battle theme with choir and drums, along with having a crazy climax at the end. Moebius Battle, M, is the Moebius battle theme, but with the use of flutes. A clever nod to the one you're fighting is not M, but Mio. Nia, Towards the Heavens, is a beautiful orchestration of drifting soul with the use of violin, piano, and choir, giving off this heavenly melody. Kaleidoscopic Core is Nia's battle theme, and to no surprise, it's another version of Drifting Soul, with Ace turning a slow vocal song into a fast-paced track with violins, drums, and guitar riffs, and trumpets built throughout. Manami Kyoto did a lot of Aryan story tracks, starting off with Great God Falls being an absolutely peaceful melody for anyone's day. Syra Hovering Reefs is one of my favorite tracks, with it having a bit of an imposing aura with Alchemoth looming in the sky. Iris Network is an extremely catchy theme that just lets you unwind after going through some exploration or battle. Battle of the Seas has a very adventurous and piracy vibe. Makes sense as it plays in Triton's quest. Great Sword's bass is an amazing remix of Sword Valley. The once sinister base of the Mechon is now a beacon of hope for Ouroboros. The city is such a vibe with the use of the Ouroboros motif throughout, for the home of the lost numbers. Lace Highway is another amazing remix, this time within Malkina Village, giving off a mystic wonder throughout. Converging Emotions has a Xenoblade 1 feel to it. The strings within the track is one of my favorites. Melia Ancient Memories is a beautiful remix of ARC and is in the top 5 of my all-time favorite tracks in this game. Yukata Kunigo is a sound player at Monolith, working with other musicians on Xenoblade 3's OST, but he got to compose one track on the game, which was Ultimate. Ultimate Enemy is an incredible super boss track for the final super boss, Seraphic Seratinia, with drums and electric guitars truly displaying the might of this beast. Now it's time to talk about the compositions of Yasunori Mitsuda and Miriam Abunasser. Abunasser did Sun Dappled Glade, which plays during side content like Miyabi's Ascension Quest. She also arranged a lot of Mitsuda's compositions, just like in Xenoblade 2. Before even composing any tracks, Mitsuda asks to create flutes to give him the ability to express himself more freely. Mitsuda once again collaborated with the Bratislava Symphony Orchestra and Anuna to compose these tracks. Mitsuda composed the title theme, Offseer, which was initially my least favorite of the 3 title themes, but has recently become a favorite of mine, with the piano perfectly illustrating the frozen and bleak world of Aionios. course, I have to talk about A Life Sent On, with it being one of the most emotional songs in the game as Noah and Mio see off the ones who have lost their lives. Battlefield: The Scramble of Life is one of the best opening themes I've heard in the video game, that perfectly hooks you within the world and uses the Moebius motif throughout. Ouroboros Awakening is an amazing track and makes the Ouroboros scene so memorable and impactful. In the Morning Mist is one of my favorite tracks, with it using the motifs within A Life Sent On, combined with a choir and French horns, truly displaying the love of Noah and Mia. Blade, Those Who Know Fear, is one of the saddest tracks in the game, with it playing in some of the game's best moments, most recently in the story DLC teaser. Hope for the Future is another great track that uses the Ouroboros motif to signify the hope for the future of Aionios. Flip's Homecoming is one, if not the best track in the game, with flutes, French horns, and the Life Sent On motifs, elevating this to one of the best tracks in the series. No One End is a tragic boss theme of a man who became regret itself, with the use of the Ouroboros and Moebius motifs throughout. Healing's Risen to the Sky is another great track using the Life Sent On motif with a great detail with 2 flutes playing at the beginning to signify our Noah is back with his Mio, but 1 flute plays towards the end of the track because N has lost his Mio to the homecoming ceremony, so he's alone. Showdown with Zed is a fantastic final boss theme, with the track getting even better with the added electric guitar in the second phase. Of course, we have to talk about the 2 vocal themes, A Step Away and Where We Belong, both performed by Sarah Ueda from Anuna. A Step Away plays when Ouroboros is in prison and the pain and frustration of them trying to break free before Mio's homecoming.
Assuming that's what you wanted to. I had no clue that we had nothing between us. Perhaps I was so scared to know the truth. Now that you're gone, and yet your love is still embracing me.
Where We Belong plays during the ending, where Ouroboros has to part ways as the worlds separate as Origin reboots.
I see you smiling there, so peacefully and cheerfully talking at me. These happy days must carry on. So once again, let's go back to the start.
I could talk about this OST for hours, but I don't want to keep you guys for that long. Xenoblade 3's OST is absolutely amazing, and it should have won Best Music at the Game Awards. Seriously, how did it lose the God of War? Xenoblade 3 wouldn't be the same without all of these incredible composers and their amazing compositions. I hope to hear even more incredible tracks in the story DLC later this year.
It's good to keep a record.
A disappointing punch-load cycle with gaps of no content. Even though the future isn't known, we'll walk this path together.
Xenoblade 3, just like Xenoblade 2, got some post-launch content. Unfortunately, unlike Xenoblade 2, we didn't get any free content outside of the Expansion Pass content. The Expansion Pass content has been okay. Wave 1, just like Xenoblade 2, is just some helpful items with some color alts for the main party. Wave 2 introduced a brand new hero, Ino, who I thought she was going to be a Poppy ult at first, but she's still an artificial blade, and the return of challenge mode. Ino has a great quest and ascension quests, but her class outside of her neutral break art is essentially Poppy Buster 2.0. And it really hurts to say that. Ino swap also falls flat due to how it's just upgrading an already bad class. At least her chain order is good, but when will you use a defender hero besides Ashira? The Land of Challenge returns from Xenoblade 2 and Definitive Edition, working more like Definitive Edition's iteration. This means challenges were quite easy. Even though there were some unique ones, they lack some of the wackiness of Xenoblade 2's challenges. The rewards from challenge mode are similar to the past challenge modes, being alternate costumes for the main party. But once again, like Definitive Edition, there are only one set of costumes per wave with color alts, unlike Xenoblade 2, which had a plethora of costumes for each wave after the Lands of Challenge's inclusion. Wave 2 had the classic swimsuits for each party member. Wave 2 was overall okay, with hopes that some free content would come later on, like Mwamba or Yorn, which were found via assets in the game and could possibly be included in New Game Plus, as New Game Plus desperately needed the content. But that didn't happen. After October, there was nothing. Well, until February, when Wave 3 was released. Wave 3 included another hero, Masha, whose class is quite good, and gives a lot of extra city lore along with accessory crafting. And the Land Challenge got a massive upgrade. The Land Challenge got a brand new mode called Archsage's Gauntlet, which is a roguelike mode that you can pair up with up to 6 heroes to clear waves of enemies. I'm a sucker for roguelikes, and this was right up my alley and gave the game a whole lot more replayability. Clearing a certain amount of stages will net you the brand new costumes, which were throwbacks to previous Xenoblade characters. We have Shulk Neo, Blade Nia Mio, Ryan Lands, Bridget Senna, Melia Uni, and Jin Tyon. Once again, these are the only costumes with color alts given to these costumes. Wave 4 is the final wave and includes the new story, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Future Redeemed, that was released on April 25th. It is quite disappointing compared to Xenoblade 2's expansion pass / post-launch, which over-delivered with the amount of content it provided. It felt like almost every month we were getting some piece of content for the game, free and paid. One hero is most definitely more work than one rare blade, of course, but going from 14 rare blades, with 8 being free and 5 being paid content, to 2 heroes being paid content, and a challenge mode that is a shadow of its former self with a fun side mode, just stings. Xenoblade 3 has sold 1.81 million copies, dethroning Xenoblade 2 as the fastest selling Xeno title in the series, with it getting closer to Xenoblade 2's all-time sales of 2.44 million copies. Mio got a scale figure and Figma that was announced by Smile, the same company that did the Pyro, Ifra, Nia, Melia, and Cosmos figures. Xenoblade got nominated by the Game Awards for Best Music, RPG, and Game of the Year, but didn't win any awards. We did get to hear Weight of Life live though. Godspeed to Pedro, Flute Guy, Eustache. He did us justice. Noah and Mio were announced to be getting amiibos later in 2023/2024, along with added functionality for the Pyro and Mithra amiibos. Xenoblade 3 has one last wave within its expansion pass, that being Future Redeemed. We don't know where this series will be heading after the Cloud Saga is done, but I'll be looking ahead optimistically and walking my own path. Thank you to those who have made it to the end of this video. This took a long time to make, so if you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe, as it will really help. Big thanks to those who's contributed to this video with their voices. You should also check them out as well. I also have a Discord where we do some cool events and is the best way to get in contact with me. Well, this is Shifted Pyro. Until next time.